tonight, State of the State, second for the governor, expected to talk a lot about roads and probably some very pointed, well, maybe even some points or at least nods and a directive glance to the GOP side of the aisle. They're the majority in the House, in the Senate, and they'll both be gathered there tonight along with cabinet members, et cetera, in the House chamber. What will she put forward for a roads bonding deal? That's expected tonight. There's been reporting to this end. And is that the right way to go? What do you want to hear from the governor tonight? Well, for no political opponents, and we know that nothing will be spared tonight. They're going to pick over with a fine-tooth comb, and they'll find something to not like. Tony Daunt, I think it's in that category with the Michigan Freedom Fund. He's on the other end of our line right now. Tony, good morning. Welcome back.
Good morning. And before we dig into that, I heard you talking about the crud and feeling kind of not right, and I feel exactly the same today. So you're not alone, sir.
Oh no! Misery loves company. But yeah, you just get that. You know when it's coming on. Now I'm trying to fight it. I'm trying to be like, got the bracelets and here come the bullets and it's like Wonder Woman, Gale, and all that stuff. But I'm not Wonder Woman. I'm not even Wonder Guy. Well, I hope you're feeling better.
Tablets all day.
I know. I hope you're exactly. I'm gonna be pushing it. Vitamin C, zinc, all that stuff. I hope you feel better. Now look. Usually you feel good, I think, when you're going full contact on the Democratic Party and on the other side, and I know you will tonight, but you did so in advance here. You put out a translating politician to English guide for State of the State 2020. So if I give you a couple of words here, you tell me what the translation will be tonight, okay?
You bet. Would love to.
All right, here we go. If the term used in the speech is accountability, what's the translation?
Well, what Governor Whitmer is saying there is we're going to hold someone else to a standard that our office is refusing to meet or to comply with.
How about investment? Because that'll be on the post. There'll be handouts that come out post speech, the different departments, and they will all say invest, invest, invest. What does that mean from your viewpoint?
One of my all-time favorites of politician speak, and that's not just from the Democrat side either, I should say. But Governor Whitmer, I think in particular, and what they're saying by investment is we're going to increase spending at your expense, and it just means more.
All right. Anytime someone hears new revenue, that means what?
Two things: tax hike or debt that will force taxpayers to pay off later. With interest, of course.
So I'm thinking there that from your translation machine, which is just as quick as Google, only it's all laid out. You don't have to wait for the bubble to fill up online. That's a shot across the bow from you about this roads bonding deal because, number two, debt, taxpayers paying off with interest and debt service, that would be covered there from your translator, right?
Absolutely. And that's spot on. That, unfortunately, the governor spent all of last year trying to push a proposal, a 45-cent per gallon gas tax increase that nobody wanted. Not just, the Republican legislature didn't want it, but there were no sponsors from the Democratic side of the aisle in either chamber of the legislature. Some 80% of the people in the state who were polled on this said they hated it. But she refused to give up on it. And then when she had to at the end of the year with the budget negotiations, she just kind of took her ball and went home. Legislature put forward, I know, at least half a dozen proposals, if not more, that were rejected by the governor. And now she's turning around and saying, I'm just going to raise debt, run up the credit card, and make everybody else pay for this down the road. And it's reckless. It's not worked in the past. And we're still paying for debt service for bonding for roads from the Engler years, which is 18 years ago he left office. And so it's just crazy.
But in fairness, a lot of that has fallen off, though, right? I mean, compared to we were a few years ago, and it was onerous for the state during the Great Recession. There's no question. But a lot of that has fallen off, and that's what they're looking at here of replacing. And if the roads have to be fixed, what is wrong with this particular proposal if they can't come to a solution with the legislature? And that doesn't look real promising right now, Tony.
Well, I think there's a couple of things to point out. Is that you are correct that certainly from years past that debt services that load is kind of coming down. But if you look at it as somebody who's managing a home, you've got mom, dad, and the kids, and they finally got their credit card paid down. It's ridiculous and foolish for them to say, "Oh, thank goodness we've got that credit card paid off. Let's rack it back up so that we can be paying for it for another 20 years. That's not how we should be running state government. It's not how you run a household or a business. And the issue of funding, aside from the credit card issue, there's any number of ways that they could inject more money into the roads right now.
Well, I mean, in a big enough level to really get at it, I think that's. I'm not sure that that's realistic, Tony. Yeah, they could get at some things, and we've been nitpicking a little bit here. We can bite off a little more here, but in order to really get at our lack of good roads in the state, top to bottom, and especially in Southeast Michigan, where there's the heaviest traffic is. It seems like there has to be a bold move here. And I'm not saying that bonds is the right way to go. I'm not saying tolling is the right way to go. I'm not saying, a complete gas tax, 45 cents, or some suggest even more at one point, is the right way to go. I'm suggesting the way we're going right now might not be the right way to go.
I don't think I would disagree with much of that. That we do need a long-term solution. We do need to address this. That both sides need to come together and address this. The legislature did put forward, as I said, numerous proposals that the governor rejected out of hand. They put forward an additional $375 million, or actually $400 million in the budget last year for roads. Now, does that solve the problem? Of course not, but it's $400 million, and that goes a long way towards solving some of the problems, and the governor vetoed it. We've got an additional, I think it's around $850 to $900 million in surplus funds from the current fiscal year, or the one that just expired, that could be put towards roads. But the governor, of course, doesn't want to do that. There's always some other pressure on the budget for Gretchen Whitmer. And, additionally, according to the revenue estimating conference just recently, we're looking at another $500 and some million, $500 to $600 million of their previous estimates for the coming fiscal year that could be used. And so, add those up, $900 million and $600 million and $400 million. You've got almost $2 billion there to throw towards the roads. And she's just not interested in that. She is interested in raising taxes or floating new bonds, which ultimately lead to higher taxes and paying for things down the road with interest. And it's reckless. It's the last thing we should be looking at.
I know we're relatively flush right now, but it could change, and probably will change. I mean, history tells us anything. It's that when you look down the road, you're still paying. You've got heavy debt service on something. Maybe you want to try to avoid that if possible. But our roads are in deplorable condition in general and overall. And I heard Mr. Lefebvre say this is just going to be a way to tax my county to fix stuff, down where she wants to pick up votes. But I'm not sure that that's so. Some counties in our state, as Tony, have been donor counties, and other counties are, much more on the receiving end, and that's not always going to fly for being a fair argument. But I want to take it back to the general tone tonight. Do you expect this to be any kind of rapprochement in a positive way with the legislature? Will this be a scolding tonight? Will it be very frank? I mean, what do you think the tone will be tonight from this governor?
Interesting question. I've been thinking about that for the last couple of days, and kind of based on some of the comments that have come out from her administration, this focus on floating this idea of the bonds and kind of the stories that have been planted about it, focusing on how it's basically, I got to do this because the legislature won't act. I think it's going to be markedly different from last year, where I think it's going to have some, there's going to be more aggressive. It's going to be a little more kind of in the face of the Republican legislature of, you guys can't get anything done, and you're not, which basically means, back to the translator, the legislature won't act just means you won't do what I want you to do. She's incapable of negotiating with them.
Well,
I think it will be more more in your face.
And from her standpoint, though, or any governor, let's say it was from your party, the GOP, if you felt like the other side doesn't, well, look, she's been put forward to give the State of the Union address, the response for the Democrats, the rebuttal, if you will, and that means she's high on the national list right now. Is there really, you say go to the other side, talk. Is there really much desire for this legislature, though, to give her any kind of political win whatsoever?
I think there is. I think that both
really.
Okay. I think both, setting the politics aside, I think if we're looking at policy that is good for the state, that Speaker Chatfield and Majority Leader Shirkey have both indicated, look, we want to get things done for the state. They did that with the auto insurance debate. Unfortunately, the governor didn't want anything to do with it, but when she realized that what they put forward was popular, would solve a lot of the problems. And then Dan Gilbert and his folks came out and said, look, if you don't sign this, we're going to the ballot. They kind of put her in a box, and she had to do what was right.
That prompted, there's no question, that prompted action that we didn't expect that kind of traction that quick for anything in this state. Now, nothing really works that way, but it did in this instance, and the threat of that, and the serious threat, and the dollars behind it. I get that, Tony. No question. Tony Daunt heads up Michigan Freedom Fund here. He put out the State of the State 2020 translation of politician speak to actual plain English here. You can agree or disagree with it, but there were a couple on there that gave me a laugh. It's like, but then I used to like travel bingo too, and things like that. Parents saying, "Hey, you get cross off each Waffle House you see, and that's part of the game." It's kind of plain long. It's good thing it's not a drinking game, right? Because we're not advocating that.
I may have a whiskey or two, but if we're not advocating drinking games, we wanted to put a smile on people's face.
I got it.
And
I
give them something
understand.
to pass the time.
I understand where you're going with this. Tony, thanks for coming on today. Very much. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Yep, Tony Daunt with the Michigan Freedom Fund here, coming at things from the right. And that's the direction that the giant stag points that's on their letterhead, to the right. Coming back. Morning Wake Up. Don't go away. 1320 WILS 20 WILS 20.